Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Recently, I engaged in some debates on Twitter X with some debunkers, and what I gather from these people is that they believe that the UFO community is a cult, pretty much a religious cult. They claim for the most part. They get very upset when you keep responding to them with facts or intelligent commentary, and then they start using curse words at you, and they get angrier and angrier and angrier. But the reality of the situation is that it's not a cult. The UFO community is not a cult, but that's how it's trying to be portrayed recently. In fact, Sean Kirkpatrick was on Twitter yesterday, or excuse me, he had a recent interview recently. And Stephen Greenstreet, a debunker from the New York Post, wrote on Twitter yesterday that UFO religion infiltrated U.S. military and Congress, threatens national security, according to ex-Pentagon chief. It says Greenstreet also says mainstream media is ignoring this shocking story. A former senior Pentagon official has sounded the alarm about a UFO religion that has infiltrated the U.S. military, duped the United States Congress, and could put national security at risk. Sean Kirkpatrick, former director of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, spent 18 months preparing an in-depth report on the UFO mania that has gripped America since 2017. Let me talk to you for a second here, Stephen. People have been interested in UFOs long before 2017. It's not a mania. It's not a mania. And in fact, these people in Congress, again, how many times do you need to be reminded? These people in Congress would not be trying to pass these bills like the UAP Disclosure Act if there wasn't something to this. They've been meeting with whistleblowers, and I'm sure that they have seen information that you have not seen, and that they would not be making fools out of themselves this way, I can assure you. But if they don't, he doesn't get into that. Anyway, continuing here, it says Kirkpatrick discovered a small network of religious UFO conspiracists, both in and out of government, spreading unfounded tall tales about aliens in order to get taxpayer resources for their paranormal crusade. And then there was an interview that Kirkpatrick was just in yesterday. It says he reemphasized his concern that these UFO activists inside government are propelled by fringe beliefs rather than evidence and are a potential threat to national security. They're not a threat to national security. People who understand that there's a cover-up going on, they're not a threat to national. Why is that? Why are people who are saying that there's a UFO cover-up a threat to national security? The threat to national security is the UFOs themselves. That's the threat to national security. Those people are sounding the alarm about them. They're real, and and a segment of the government that knows this for a fact and has the evidence that could end this debate once and for all is keeping it to themselves and are not sharing with the rest of the world. That's what's going on. But anyway, debunker Mick West responded to this, and he said, "This is quite remarkable. Kirkpatrick, the former head of the Pentagon's ARROW UFO investigation program, reveals that several of his colleagues in the intelligence community or military secretly held entirely baseless beliefs in non-human UFOs, and they accuse him of a cover-up. This is a problem." I tweeted back saying, "Yeah, even the insiders know he's lying. It is a problem." Yeah, it's a problem because he's lying. And these people take anything that Kirkpatrick says for gospel. That's, they're talking about a cult, right? Kirkpatrick is one of their cult leaders now. He's become that. Everything that he says, they believe it. They believe everything he says, even though he offers no evidence whatsoever, like in that new report that he had his fingerprints all over, that new ARROW report. There was all these assertions made, but he didn't offer any sort of evidence to back up any of the assertions made, as has been pointed out by many people. In fact, there's some people in the mainstream news are starting to point this out. But anyway, I ended up getting in a debate yesterday over all these things. I talked about some of that yesterday in yesterday's podcast, but one of the debunker followers sent me, I was in a little debate with this guy. His name's Jerry Boggs, and he sent me an essay that he had written about why he believes in the things that he believes in, which is nothing. He doesn't believe in this extraterrestrial presence. And I just want to go through some of this essay, and I want to refute some of the things that he has in here, because I think it's important. And I think it's important to also note, again, They claim that people in the UFO community, I keep hearing this over and over again. It's a religious cult. Okay, what is the definition of cult first? First out, let's check that out. Here's from Oxford Dictionary. It's a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. A relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. A misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. So I don't really have any kind of veneration or devotion, right, toward any particular figure at all, whatsoever. I mean, in fact, some of the top people over in ufology throughout the years, like for instance the late Stanton Friedman, I didn't agree with some of the things that he put forth. I just don't. A lot of people in the UFO community do not agree with each other. A lot of people in the UFO community argue about what might be real and what might not be real. I mean, there's no singular cult figure, for one thing, right? We're just the people in the UFO community. A lot of these people, some of them had their own sightings. Some of them have done enough research to understand that there's something to this. Some of them have actually encountered these extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence beings themselves, right? And that's why they're interested in it, and they don't like the idea of this cult group who will not look at any of the data, not consider any of it. Think about it. How many different reports over the decades have there been of encounters with extraterrestrials? How many different people from the military have come forth over the decades and said, well, there's most certainly a cover-up? All these different people over the years, all the different witnesses for the Roswell case, right? There's just so much, right? So much, and none of it can be taken into consideration by this group of people who is claiming that the UFO community is the cult. It's actually they are in the cult. And as I talked about recently in a different podcast, their cult leader seems to be Carl Sagan, the late Carl Sagan, the astronomer. Carl Sagan was an intelligent guy. He was a smart guy, and he had, it's good. I think you need to be skeptical, right? But he was a little bit too skeptical. He would not consider any of the data, that there was data that was produced. There is evidence to be looked at here, like physical landing case traces. There's evidence of that. When these things land, there's physical traces left behind. Burnt vegetation, marks in the ground, footprints, right? We talk about that a lot. There's the cattle mutilations. Nobody's ever solved it yet. Where's there's no evidence yet. Some people in the UFO community believe that extraterrestrials or non-human intelligences are responsible. The other side, what are they saying? Oh, it's natural predators, and it's satanic cults or something like that, maybe, But there's never any evidence that they present. And of course, the only evidence that the UFO community has is witness testimony. They see there's flying saucers seen, things that are helicopters that make no noise, right? Things like that. So there's all these different things. There's video evidence, there's film evidence. Yeah, okay, a lot of it is blurry sometimes, but sometimes it's clear. Sometimes there's clear photographs. We never got images of inside these craft, of course, right? Obviously, these beings don't want to get that close to us. And another thing that this cult has in their head is it seems like they believe that we would be just as smart. The human race would be just as smart as any intelligent being coming here. So because of that, they think, for instance, like we would have pictures of them, right? We'd have close-up pictures. We'd have all this evidence by this point. If they were really here, where is it? How come it's always blurry? Blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe they're smarter. See, they don't consider this. Maybe they're smarter than we are, and they have things figured out. They have things set up in a way where it makes it very difficult for us to get that end-all evidence, right? Maybe that's what's going on. But sometimes we have, and I believe that the government has. I believe that there's no question in my mind that something crashed in Roswell, and it wasn't a balloon, right? And no time-traveling anthropomorphic dummies either, right? Something happened in 1947 that was covered up by the government, and it had nothing to do with any balloon, mogul or weather, right? So again, they're not doing their research. They don't consider any of the data. They never do. And then they have the audacity to say, hey, you guys are in a cult because you all believe this same crazy thing, right? No, not all of us believe every single story either. That's another thing. if somebody presents evidence that shows that something's a phony, right? We're gonna say, yeah, that's a fake. That was phony. If there's sometimes if it's somewhere in the middle, the gray area, then some people will say, I still think it could be real, and somebody else will say, I might think it's fake. Like the Skinny Bob videos, there's a lot of people in the UFO community who think that those videos show some real extraterrestrials. I don't think so, personally. Personally, I think it was created by CGI. Right? It doesn't make me right, though. If somebody has some other data to present to me to show me for a fact that, oh no, this is real, then I would consider it. But I'm not going to throw the whole thing out. Now, one thing I will throw the whole thing out is recently I talked about the Trinity UFO incident that was written about by Jacques Vallée in a couple of books over the last couple of years. I think that's phony. I think it's fake. I think that Jacques Vallée got tricked. I think he got duped by these two. Basically, there was one witness he had to work with. There was another guy that was talking about this years earlier, and he was already passed away before Jacques Vallée got into it. But I think that he was duped. Douglas Dean Johnson, a researcher, showed clearly that is a hoax, that this was all contrived. So I don't see that. It's not a cult. There's cases out there when the evidence is presented that shows something's phony or false. I think most people in the UFO community accept it and move on. But not these people. They don't accept anything. There is nothing, no data whatsoever. They think that they are smarter than everybody else, and that everybody else who believes in this is crazy. That's not true. They are in the cult. And again, the cult figure for them, in most cases, it seems, is Carl Sagan. That's who they have propped up as their cult figure. Whatever he said. Well, Carl Sagan said this, though. Michael Shermer recently, he's a debunker on Twitter. But Carl Sagan said this. Remember what Sagan said? Oh, what? So it's always their fallback for the most part. Now, there's other people, too, that they'll quote. But for the most part, it's Sagan. That's who that's why they're in a cult. They have this belief system that there's absolutely nothing to it. There's absolutely zero evidence. And any data that anybody presents out there has to be false because we've already determined that it's false. So what's even the point in looking at the evidence? Like I just talked about again, those corpses discovered in Peru. There's Mexican scientists right now stating that these things are non-human, and they're inviting other scientists from America, from the United States, to come and look at it for yourselves and make your own determinations. They're not going to do that, as I talked about in the previous podcast. Mick West said that it's all silly to him, so they're not going to do it. I actually received another comment today from another debunker acolyte. It was in response to this tweet. I wrote, "Why isn't Team Metabunk boarding a plane for Mexico right now to examine the Peruvian corpses? The group said this week that they want scientists from America to look for themselves. Here's their big chance to prove it's all a hoax. What are they waiting for?" And one of somebody who's a follower of debunkers like Mick West writes, "For the same reason they aren't flying to Ireland to hunt for leprechauns." Now that's okay, haha, but I wrote back saying there are no scientists in Ireland claiming to possess scientific proof that leprechauns exist, though. So every time they put up an argument, you could easily slap it down, as I just did. I mean, that argument that was put out there about leprechauns in Ireland, that's bogus, though. Like I just said, nobody's in Ireland. If there were, say scientists in Ireland right now. Let's as an example here, for instance, say there was a group of scientists step up in front of a podium somewhere in Ireland tomorrow, we'll say, right, and say, "Hey, we found these. Looks like leprechauns to us. We examined them. They're not human. I don't know what they are. Maybe the leprechaun myth is actually not a myth after all. These looks like we really have leprechauns here in Ireland." And they provide some scientific data to go along with it. Is the debunker crowd just going to sit back and do nothing then? And just say, "Oh, it's all fake. I don't believe it. I don't need to look at the data. I don't need to study it for myself. So why even bother?" Right? Because, see, their minds are already made up. That's cult behavior. That's cult behavior where you're completely closed. You're completely closing off your mind to everything. I was talking recently about my own experiences. These people say there's no scientific evidence of anything, but we're trying to find scientific evidence. We're trying to establish that. I think it needs to be established. There's just too many people that have had experiences throughout the years, whether it's alien abductions or close-up UFO encounters. The Phoenix Lights, where like 1,000 people see this giant craft flying around, right? Okay, now were all these people hallucinating? Like what's the debunkers' take on this stuff? What were these people seeing? They said 1,000 people. We don't know. Let's just say 100 people, right? 100 witnesses said they saw a gigantic craft so big that there's no way it could have been man-made, right? So they'll say, well, the debunkers will say, well, it was an optical illusion. They'll say it has to be something like that, natural phenomena, whatever. They'll go, maybe it was jets flying information. They'll present those kinds of excuses, but they never ever, you ever notice this? They never ever go say, well, it possibly could have been extraterrestrial. They never take that leap. They can't do it. They don't want to do it, even though, despite the preponderance of evidence at this point, they cannot make themselves do it because they don't want to go there. They want to stay in that shell that they're in, this cult that says none of this is real. It's a cult where you're dismissing everything out of hand. That is a cult. And again, their cult figure is Carl Sagan. That's who they pray to. Now, okay, I'm just going to talk briefly here about my experience, my own personal experience. One of them, I have two of them, right? The personal experience I had in the late 1970s, in 1977 when I was a kid. I just talked about it. I went over the whole story again in a recent podcast. Now, I contend, right, that I wake up in the middle of a night, right, and for 20 minutes I was terrified. There was something in the room that was not human. I could see its arm. I had a blanket over my head, but I could see through the blanket. It was in the summertime. It was a thin blanket. I could clearly see through the blanket that there was something standing by my bed, and I could see its arm. I could see the silhouette, the shadow of its arm very clearly through the blanket, and it kept on getting close. This hand, it only had 3 digits on it, right? 3 digits. It was not a human hand whatsoever. The digits were thick at the base, and they came to almost tips at the ends. And it was moving above my head, up and down, over my head, right? And additionally, there was an electronic humming sound the whole time. Now, this incident lasted for 20 minutes. The longest 20 minutes of my life, right? I was scared out of my mind. I had no idea what was going on or what this thing was, right? Now, at the time, I thought, of course, I thought it was something from hell. What else could I think? I was, I was raised in the Catholic Church. I was going to church all the time. I was an altar boy. Was something from hell coming to my room in the middle of the night to drag me away or something? I had no idea what was going on. But this thing just was there, and it wouldn't go away, and it wouldn't respond to me either when I tried to talk to it. I said, "Who's there?" Nothing, just this electronic humming sound, like and this hand moving up and down over my face. So, I tried calling for other people in the house; they don't come. And then at some point, finally, somehow I conked out, and then woke up the next day. I didn't know what it was. Again, I never. I imagined that it was extraterrestrials. It took 10 years, but scientifically, what will a debunker tell me it was? They'll either say I'm either lying, right? I made it up, or I was having some sort of a dream, a lucid dream maybe. So I've heard sleep paralysis, which that could not be the case. I know what sleep paralysis is. You can't move when you have sleep paralysis. I was moving around the whole 20 minutes. I was just so afraid. I didn't want to get out from under the blanket and face whatever this thing was. But there was something there. Now, I don't know of any other creature, right, outside of mankind that would be able to sneak into someone's house like this and pull some stunt off like this, right? So I had to, and additionally, there was this strange sound during the whole course of this event. Now, scientifically, what was happening there? What's the explanation from the debunkers? Let's eliminate that I'm lying, because I'm not. I'm not lying about this. I'm not making this up, right? That's not, right? Let's eliminate the dreaming or sleep paralysis. Let's wipe those things out, right? I'm screaming at the top of my lungs during this incident, trying to get, first my brother, who was right across from me. I peeked out of the blanket. He was we had the light on, and I could see everything clearly, in that room, on that other side of the room. He was facing me. He would not wake up. He was completely conked out, and even though I was screaming at the top of my lungs for him to wake up, he would not wake up. I started screaming for my mom and dad, who were right below us, right? Nothing. They never came to the rescue, right? And then somehow I ended up saying my prayers, kept saying my prayers over and over again, and then somehow I conked out. Wake up the next day, nobody believes me. Okay, let's eliminate the dream, right? Let's eliminate the possibility that I'm lying. Let's eliminate all that stuff. And okay, say we're just left with that incident. There was something standing by the bed. There was this electronic humming sound, and there was this hand there, right? I don't know what it was, right? I think it was like extraterrestrial. I can't prove that, but I think it could have been, based on testimony and experiences reported by millions of other people that have had encounters with these things. At this point, that's where I've come to the determination, or some non-human intelligence of some sort, right? Scientifically, that could be a possibility, but these people, right? These people in the debunker cult will not even go there. They won't accept, they won't even consider it. They don't want to, they can't. They're stuck in their cult and they can't get out of it. They can't break free. And the same thing goes, for the other experience I had when I saw the craft. But that time in 1994, during the fishing trip, I had a witness there. We saw something that made no sound, that was as big as a house. Scientifically, what is the explanation for this, right? If once you rule out that both of us really saw this and we're not lying and we're not making a hoax, because it's not a hoax. Actually, we never even talked about it publicly. Ever. In fact, my friend never talked about it publicly. He talked about it with his family and mentioned it to some friends, and that was the extent of where he went with it. Of course, I've taken it to another level here, right? But eliminate that. We actually really saw this. What was it? What could be as big as a house that could fly around very extremely close to trees and make absolutely no sound? So when you say you eliminate a hoax or a made-up story, right? You had two people who saw this. In fact, my friend shined a flashlight on the bottom of this thing. He shined a flashlight on the bottom of this thing, right before we got out of there, because we were both scared. I thought the thing was going to land right there. I didn't know what was going to happen. But what was it? What was it? If it wasn't something that was, it couldn't have been something that was man-made. Why would the government be testing some sort of silent craft that could float around extremely close to trees in some sort of very close to a residential area? We were actually in a private community at the time, fishing in this little pond. What was scientifically? What could that have been? Well, it was definitely something that was controlled. It was something that was intelligently manufactured. It had to be, whatever this thing was, right? It had to be, right? It had to be. There's no question about it. I saw it with my own eyes. I know what I saw. It wasn't a dream, and there was a witness there. He saw the same thing. We both saw it, right? So what was it? What's your explanation? It was as big as a house. It was only 2.5 stories off the ground. It was within 20 feet of me. Within 20 feet. It stopped. It moved in ways that aircraft that we make really can't move, right? It moved like this. And then it stopped right in front of me momentarily before it started going off in a different direction. And it made no sound. What, in 1994, I ask you, what kind of device could have been manufactured by mankind that does that? That's what I'm trying to find out from the debunkers. I know you won't accept any of this, right? But that is evidence. There's not just my testimony. There's tons of evidence out there, tons of other people out there who make similar kinds of claims, right? And they're not lying. So, okay, I admit there's probably, let's just say 50% are misidentifications of a lot of these really exotic sightings that were not like the kind I'm talking about here. These exotic encounters, these really strange ones. Let's take out 90% of them. There's 10% left. What's the explanation for it? They won't even consider it. They won't consider it. They're in a cult. They don't know it. They're not considering the data. They will not do it. They can't. It's impossible for them. Anyway, I want to get into just one more thing here. And there was one of the people that I was debating with on Twitter X was somebody named Jerry Boggs, and he sent me an essay that he wrote, and I just want to go through some of this stuff and just, Now, he has a bunch of quotes in here from skeptics, and I agree with these quotes. So here's a good one. Skepticism is the essential posture for the fully awake 21st century human being. Okay, Guy P. Harrison said that. Good thinking. What you need to... That was from a book he wrote, I guess, or an article. Okay, I agree with that. Yeah. I'm skeptical of things too. Another one, here's from astrophysicist Ethan Siegel. A lack of appropriately healthy skepticism is how we wind up with scams and charlatans. Okay, yeah. If you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary. That was somebody. Now here's somebody else. This is Rene Descartes, Principles of Philosophy. If you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things. Okay. And then, so, okay, yeah, I agree. I think people should be skeptical. I have no problem with that. I'm very skeptical, right? I'm very skeptical. When I first hear a story, like for instance, when I first heard there was a story last year, at around the same time when Grush was when everyone was learning about David Grush and the things that he had to say around that very same time last year, there was the Vegas alien story that came up. At first, I don't know if I believe this, but then when you hear the people, right, and you look at the story, and the story is pretty much the same. And actually, I actually had Scott Roeder. There was some video that was filmed. Scott Roeder, he's a crime scene reconstruction specialist, right? He came on the show and showed me that in that video there was something that they captured on on a little clip of video. Only it was a couple seconds, but you could see a being moving. It looked like a being moving. That corroborated the story, right, that these people were trying to tell the news at the time, back in late April, early May, or I believe that's when it was. So you could see something moving. And not only that, these people, even a couple months down the road, even though there was other people telling them that they're just making this up, and they offer really no evidence to show that they were liars or hoaxers or anything like that. To this point, no debunker offered any evidence that refutes that story. In fact, Mick West, right when the story came out, immediately said it's a hoax. Immediately, didn't do any sort of research, just like what's happening now with these Peruvian corpses. They make statements right out of the gate. They don't investigate anything. Now, you ask yourself again, who's in a cult? You're blindly believing things that you don't even investigate. How is that not a cult? But anyway, I looked into that story. I still think that there's something to that Vegas alien story. There's some other people in the UFO community, people who follow me, for instance, who say they think it's a hoax. They think he made it up. That's fine. See, that's because we're not in a cult. We don't agree on everything. That's how it's supposed to be. But in the world of debunkerism, they don't believe in anything. None of them will cross the line. They won't do it. They won't consider any of the data that does not support their hypotheses. That's how it works. Anyway, let's go through a little bit more of this. This is a very long piece that he wrote. And I find it, to me, it's fascinating, and I'll leave the link for it so you can check it out for yourself. But it allows you to get inside the mind of a person who has fallen for this debunker ideology, which is just don't believe any of these people who are presenting any sort of data that might might inform you that there is some presence here. Don't listen to any of it because it's not true. We're telling you that. And this guy has drunk the bathwater, as far as I'm concerned. Could be a great guy, could be a nice guy, but I can't subscribe to anything that he says in here. It's all nonsense. He gets into a lot of different things here. I want to just refute some of them. Like, of course, one of the things that he talks about, a lot of debunkers talk about, is that the impossibility of that would be posed to any sort of extraterrestrial race out in space to travel to this world. You hear that one all the time. Like, again, they're basing all of this stuff on science that is known today. They forget the story of Simon Newcomb, which I like to bring up. Of course, Simon Newcomb was an astronomer who was a noted astronomer from the 1800s, and then in the early 1900s, just weeks before the Wright brothers flew their plane, he made a statement saying, there's no way that flight of a heavier than air object is possible. Right. And then after they did have their historic flight, then later on he said, well, guess what? You're never going to be able to have more than one person flying a plane. Of course, now he looks totally ridiculous. That's his legacy now. And that's going to be the legacy of a lot of these debunkers in the end, in the final analysis. People are going to look back at this time and are going to view those people. You know how we look back in the past and there's these pompous, pious priests who if you said anything that the earth isn't the center of the universe, then they actually burned you at the stake. Right? That's the kind of stuff that they would do. Like, for instance, Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake back in the 1500, I think it was, because ordered by the Pope at the time, burned this guy at the stake because he believes in things that Copernicus was saying about the universe. So we don't go for that. So guess what? Tie him up and torture him first, and then you know what to do. That's how I look at these people now, these debunkers. That's how they try to run people into the ground who they don't believe. They attack there's character assassination. There's a lot of that going on. Anyway, let me go through some of this article. Later on, he quotes University of Rochester astrophysicist Adam Frank from Futurism.com. You would think, says Frank, that creatures technologically capable of traversing the mind-boggling distances between the stars would also know how to turn off their high beams at night and to elude our primitive infrared cameras. Okay, so again, these are all assumptions these people are making. It doesn't change the fact, okay, so sometimes these objects are seen by people and sometimes they're photographed or videoed or whatever, right, over the decades. But see, these people, they have this idea in their head that, if they're coming all this way, but somehow they forgot to turn their headlights off. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't prove anything. That doesn't make it like, it's not real because this guy said that. I mean, that's ridiculous to think that. Anyway, continuing here with this quote, he goes, according to the hundreds of Twitter posts I've read, UFO buffs believe, as I too once believed, that aliens visit us regularly. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, I don't know if they visit us regularly. I think that there are some here doing up to something what I don't know. I don't know how long they've been here. I don't know where they came here or when they came here or how long they've been here. I just think that there's something here based on my own experiences, right? There has to be, right? In my mind, as far as I'm concerned, scientifically, I have not been presented with, as far as my experiences go, right? I have not been presented by anything from any scientific study or any debunker to show me that what I experienced was not what I'm saying it was. Could I be wrong? Of course I could be. Maybe it's some sort of a non-human intelligence that's been here the whole time, maybe even before us. I don't know. I'm just telling you that there's something here because there's just too much evidence out there. And again, when you have your own experiences, right? When you see these things with yourself, you know, and you know you're right. I know I'm right, and I know these guys are wrong. I know that they are. There's no question in my mind about it. And it has nothing to do with being a part of a cult. It's being presented. I was presented at different points in my life, 2 different points in my life, right? Presented with the evidence. I saw it with my own eyes. I experienced it. So again, none of these things that they say they don't make sense. This is not an end game debunk. It's just not. And then Jerry Boggs ends the whole piece here talking about how everyone on the planet has a cell phone right now. He goes on, and finally, all over the earth, billions of phone cameras are at the ready night and day. There are also thousands of professional astronomers as well as countless amateurs, backyard astronomers as was I for years, who comb the skies nightly, taking crisp, vivid photos of planets and other sky objects with high-definition cameras or camcorders. Considering all this, why haven't we seen just one picture of a clearly, decisively defined alien craft? Admittedly, AI-generated images may make it more and more difficult for all but the best scientists and forensic video photo analysts to flush out fakes. I totally agree with that other statement. I think we're at a point now where that is going to make it very difficult, but there has been some pictures taken over the years of where you could clearly see something. You clearly see an object in the sky, and you hear the story. Sometimes in some of these cases, there were multiple witnesses there when the picture was taken, or video. Like, what about the Turkey UFO videos? That stuff was looked at by different groups of experts, and they determined it's not a hoax. Do they talk about that? Understandably, it's not clear. Yeah, I get it, right? But these people they can't think outside the box. I mean, how do we know what these aliens probably know what we're capable of, and they're being very careful. Maybe they're becoming more careful as time goes on, and they see how we keep progressing with our technology, and they now see that we have cell phones that can produce high definition cameras. But the fact of the matter is that still some people are capturing these with their high definition cell phones. We are getting pictures. Of course, they might be blurry sometimes. Sometimes they might be clear. I've seen some clear ones. There was some that I talked about, I think it was last year, that was taken in Mexico. 3 pictures that somebody took with his cell phone of a flying saucer hovering over his house, and it was very, very clear. So there are some that are taken, but these beings obviously don't want to rock the boat or whatever. I guess they don't want to really interfere with us for whatever reason. And then he goes on to say, if we had that one undeniable, indisputable photo, wouldn't astronomers, physicists, the media, and huge masses of people in every country be excitedly showcasing and discussing it day and night? Wouldn't all of Earth be preparing to receive and communicate with the aliens? Again, we've had photographs. People have been looking at these things. For instance, the McMinnville photograph from 1950, that was in Life magazine at the time. People they have no answers for it. You have a bunch of debunkers saying, yeah, it's a hoax, that without any proof. They had those 2 people, was a husband and wife living on this farm in Oregon at the time that took this picture. They went to their graves saying that it was real, and this is a real event. They saw this craft, and then when it took off, it moved faster than anything they ever saw in their lives. 2 pictures. The guy was able to manage to get 2 pictures of the thing. Does that not count? They did make a big deal about it back in 1950. Now again, you have debunkers saying it's phony. Well, where's your proof? You had these 2 people live their whole life. They never made any money off that picture. It was real. That's because it was real. They weren't lying. There's just you have scientifically, when you look at all of this stuff scientifically, you have to understand that of all these reported cases, all these sightings, all these pictures, all these videos that have been taken over the years, right? So there's a percentage for sure that are legitimate. There's no question. Not all of these things are hoaxes or misidentifications or people just lying. That's scientifically, you would have to agree with that, but these people don't. But you know why? Because they are in a cult. They can't go beyond that. They can't break out of that. They're stuck. They're in a cult. Their figure is Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan would tell them, don't believe in it. So that's why they looked at, what would Carl say? Don't believe in it. Okay, I don't believe in it. They don't even realize it. They don't see. They can't help themselves. They don't understand. People who are in cults usually don't know that they are in cults. Anyway, continuing here, it says, here's why we haven't seen that photo or video that positively identifies a genuine extraterrestrial spacecraft. In simple terms, extraterrestrials, as I explained earlier, are too few and far between and can't or don't want to get here from there. Yeah, okay, here's more. Earlier in this article, this guy makes these assumptions that it's too far away, the physics wouldn't work, it would take all this power, all this time. Again, how does he know? How do we know how they're getting here? How do we know that they weren't here the whole time? We don't know. And yes, they make a big deal of, they'll just say they're here. Yeah, we will say they are here. That explains it. They're here. They got here somehow, right? Even if aliens somehow overcame all the obstacles to paying us a visit, why? To repeat, would they expend tremendous amounts of time and resources only to perhaps learn that Earth has been annihilated? Yeah, he was arguing earlier that any civilization, alien civilization, would look out at Earth, but they would be seeing Earth in the long past. So why would they? By the time they get here, it would be 100,000, who knows, million years later, might not even be here. That was the argument that he was saying before. But again, these are assumptions. You're making assumptions. That's all assumptions. Where's the evidence to this? There's not. This is just speculation. And to their credit, a lot of speculation is going on the side of the UFO community as well. But it's speculation on why they're here. We've accepted this. There is something here, and there is a cover-up, right? We've accepted this, a lot of people in the UFO community. We've accepted this based on the preponderance of the evidence, which you guys don't want to consider. Because you're in a cult, unfortunately, and you don't know it. You're in a cult, and you don't know it. It's a sad day. It really is. I know a lot of you are a lot of debunkers out there. If they do happen to listen to this, they probably won't because their minds are already made up. And why listen to anybody who's trying to be reasonable with them? You're in a cult, and you can't break out of it. You just won't. You don't even know it. You don't even know it. You're praying to these debunkers. They're your high priests. Here, I'll tell you what. Mick West, Brian Dunning, Jason Colavito, Stephen Greenstreet, right? They're the high priests, right, at the altar of Carl Sagan. That's what's going on. They're your high priest, and that's who you pray to. Whatever they tell you is gospel, and nothing else. No data, no evidence whatsoever, right? That is put in front of you could be good, will ever be good enough. That's what's going on here. Unless, which what we're trying to do, if we get the government to finally come clean about what they know, then what are you going to do? What are you going to do then when that day happens? Are you going to apologize? What are you going to do? I finally admit you were wrong. What's going to happen? Or are you going to crack up? What's going to happen? I can't wait. I wonder what's going to happen when that day comes. Because when you finally have somebody in position of power telling you what we've been trying to tell you for a long time, right? What's going to happen? What is going to happen to you? How are you going to react? What's going to happen to you mentally? I want to know. Think about it. You should, because guess what? We're right and you're wrong. I'm going to tell you again. I've said this before. I'm holding a royal flush. I'm going to win this game in the end. If it is a game, if you want to, because that's the way you guys treat it. So why not? If it's a game, I have a royal flush. You got 8 high. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. I know. I saw it with my own eyes. I know it's real. You guys are wrong. It's real, and there is evidence, and you're not considering it. You're just pretending it doesn't exist, and the priests that are telling you this, right? They're not providing all the data to you. They're not providing it. They're twisting themselves into pretzels, right, to make it seem like there's nothing to this. There is something to this, and you guys are wrong, and the UFO community is right. We are not a cult. We don't agree on a lot of stuff, right? You guys are a cult. You agree on one thing. And that is, there's nothing to this. It's all phony. You're wrong. You're wrong. From our point of view, some of the stuff is phony. Of course, some of it's misidentified, of course. But some of it is something else. And we don't know. I say it could be extraterrestrial, right? That's what I think, right? I could be wrong. I admit I could be wrong about that. Some people say it's non-human intelligence that could be here the whole time. Some people say it's interdimensional. I don't subscribe to that. But hey, if that's what it turns out to be, I'll accept it and move on, whatever it is. But I know that there's an advanced race of something here, of creatures, right? I don't know how many different civilizations are here, have set up shop here. I don't know, but there's something here. I know that, and you don't, and you're wrong. You're in a cult. Anyway, I just want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.